Whether you are a new or seasoned podcaster, you might be finding yourself holding bits of yourself back from your podcast audience. It's important that, yes, we are not trauma dumping on our listeners, but that we share bits of ourselves to really give value to our audience, to not just be like every other podcaster in the world, and instead be able to stand out. And the way to do that is by being yourself. Today's guest, Jodi, is sharing her journey into podcasting, which is more recent, but with 20 something years of experience in business, she was able to use her podcast as a marketing tool, as a way to not only talk to her audience, but to her clients, keep herself top of mind, and use it to educate new potential clients as well. We talk through her podcasting journey, why she started, some things that held her back from starting initially, and then what she's doing to ensure that, as someone who has dyslexia, to be able to plan out those podcast outlines without feeling frustrated with herself, and how she uses AI to do that. Please join me in welcoming Jodi to the podcast. Welcome to Podcasting Unlocked, the show for purpose-driven podcasters. I'm Alicia Galati, founder of Galati Media, and I'm here to share actionable strategies to help you amplify your message and grow your audience. Jodi, I am so excited to have you on the podcast. If you could start by telling everyone who you are, what you do, and a bit about your show.
Sure. My name is Jodi Peterman. I'm the owner of Elizabeth Erin Designs. We do nationwide interior design services for multifamily properties, vacation rentals. We've done a beautiful spa. You name it, we probably have done it at some point. And my team works nationwide because I'm a little bit of a control freak. So, like when the years that shall not be named happened, AKA COVID, came, I learned that we all can work remote and work does get done. I can chill just a little bit. So that was fantastic to learn. The other question you asked was about the show. So I have a podcast that I just started November of last year called Designing in 5D, which kind of came about because I went through this spiritual awakening. I don't know how many people on your show have talked about that, but I went through this whole period. It started in 2015, but really took off last year in a major way. I had the pause moment in my business, and I'm like, I'm just going to go forward. I'm going to push marketing because a lot of times when things aren't flowing, we want to cut back. I think that's the best time to push forward. So I push forward with marketing. I push forward with getting my podcast done, what I was scared shitless to do, by the way, because I love to talk, but there's a lot of stuff in here and it doesn't always come out eloquently or in the right way. I've learned to embrace that crazy creative side of me, and that's my superpower. So it's just going to come out in the podcast. People are either going to love it or hate it, and the ones that love it, it'll be for, and the ones that aren't. Because if I try and strive for that perfectionism in our design services, I would never get the podcast off the ground. I'd already been talking about it since 2018, and I was letting fear hold on to me so tightly that I'm like, I'm just going to do it. It was literally like a rip it off the Band-Aid moment. So yeah, I started talking about it. And because I was going through this spiritual awakening, I was like, it's more than just design. Like, I don't want to talk about just design because before I started the podcast, I hired a marketing crew and I'm like, go through and tell me what we're not doing right. They went through and they're like, it's a beautiful website. You've got beautiful messaging, but literally I could take your brand name off and your face off and plug any other designer in. And it's so blah. So it doesn't really show your personality. And I'm like, okay, I need to lean into this more. And I got a lot of encouragement through my spirit guides, through God's source, through other people listening to my podcast saying, you need to really lean into that a little bit more. So the first few podcasts are more reserved, but now like we're talking about everything. Like I had a girl on who does all of my murals. She custom prints murals and installs them for clients. And we were talking about edible chocolate and her seeing Jesus. We've talked about all of the things. I mean, that all comes part of design and being intentional about design and manifesting your clients. It all kind of ties together. So that's what the podcast is about. It's about my journey and the idea came about was I was thinking about interior design as, okay, there's different levels of interior design, like the 2D renderings, the flat lays, and then the 3D, that's when the design comes in. You can do all these beautiful visuals that you were talking about earlier, right? We see all the visuals, the renderings, and we do video walkthroughs of all the renderings. It's pretty cool. It's like HGTV style on steroids. But we're doing that. And then I was like, okay, but there's also this level of spirituality of like, everybody's trying to reach 5D status, right? Like you want to be in the spirituality of 5D. You want to get out of this 3D negative earth, whatever this experience is, and just level up. And it's literally just a state of mind, I feel like. And so I was like, okay, how can we take this and tie this into my work? Because I've had my birth chart done and everybody says you are supposed to be helping people with houses. So we really hope you are. Otherwise, you're probably redesigning your house and moving furniture in your house a lot. I'm in interior design, so it's good. I started thinking about it and I'm like, 1D for me and my business is having that discovery call with the client. That's why I provide everybody with a 1 hour consultation. They're going to tell me about their project and I'm going to talk to them about our process. And we're going to just make sure that we're a right fit for each other. We're going to discover if we can work together, right? And then once we decide that we are, we'll move into the next phase, which is the 2D. And that's looking at, let's look at 2D plans and how does removing that wall affect the 2D plan? What are you going to be able to gain? What do you lose when we remove that wall? We have those sorts of discussions and then we move over to 3D, which is really heavy individuals. It's touching samples, feeling samples, looking at the renderings, really getting into the design nuts and bolts of everything. And then we brought in, okay, what's 4D? 4D came about when I was working with a client a couple years ago who was very frustrated when I took myself out of the project after we finished designing it all. Then I handed it over to the contractor, like, here's your baby, you take it and go now, right? So the client was left with the contractor, but the contractor was speaking to her in terms that she didn't understand. He was speaking too quickly. He was talking, communication wasn't flowing, and then she got her guard up. It was just a frustrating process for everybody. And they were trying their best to talk to her, but it wasn't translating very well for her because she'd been burned in the past. So she called me and I'm like, I did everything contractually that I was supposed to do. I designed it all for you. Now that all this stuff that you're wanting me to do, that's outside my scope of work. And then finally, I just heard this voice in my head saying, ask her how she can be supported throughout this process. So it's exactly what I said to her. And I said, Kim, how can I support you through this process? What can I do? And then it took everything down to a conversation level and we discussed it. I said, I just want to help you. I want to bridge the gap of communication between you and our contractors. So that kind of developed our 4D version of our concierge package. When people have a bigger project and they want us to be there throughout the whole thing, weekly meetings, holding their hand, helping them through all the challenges that go wrong in a remodel and new build. So we offer that. Then it's 5D. So 5D is like transcendence to me. When you've become the best version of yourself, or you think you have, or your business, what's better than the best? How can you get better than the best that you are? And 5D always keeps us on our toes and moving forward and thinking, how can we do better and create a better journey for our clients? And so I take all of that and wrap that up into different episodes and putting that in our podcast.
Oh my goodness. I love all of it because I think it really shares your personality. It brings the things that you value into the conversation. It's not
Yes.
just 1D. Here's the interior design. Let's discover what is good for you, what's good for me, and then move from there. It's taking it even further and being able to take the conversations deeper, which I think podcast listeners are craving right now. They crave that
Yes.
we share all the multifacetedness of ourselves. Quick tips are great, but they can get that asking AI.
Yeah,
We need
for
to give them
sure.
more.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a while. Like we did everything but the concierge service. So now we've added that in. It was a missing piece that fit into the puzzle for my business. And if you don't need it, don't do it. And that's what we figure out in the discovery call. If your project doesn't call for it, don't pay for it. But if it's something that you need, or you're going to be traveling, or you're going to be out and or you're out of state, and it's something that you could find beneficial, then let's talk about adding that in. I've helped people find Airbnbs. I've helped people get movers and move all their furniture out and then take what they don't want and get it donated to different centers and get them the write-off slips. I've actually come in and saged somebody's house and their dog because everything just kept, when you get in that negative mindset, they were manifesting all of these negative things. Anything that could have gone wrong did, but it was out of everybody's control. You can't control somebody's wife getting cancer. You can't control your project manager going to get LASIK surgery and then having it get so infected that he almost loses an eye. You can't control a tornado hitting a place where your cabinets are being made and wiping out all of your cabinets, right? All these things were being manifested because they got in the way of the project. And that negativity started to pull the project down, which was sad, which is why I started the concierge service. Hopefully good for our clients in the future to be able to offer that. And then all of that's leading into other things. You asked me a question before we started about how to bridge the gap of being in such a visual, tactile place and how do you bring that onto, podcasting. And I think I do it through having my personality, the descriptions, the type of clients that we bring on. It's tied through that way because the only visual they're really getting is my beautiful little face and whoever my guess is as visuals. I think the podcasts are supposed to shine your personality for people to glean from. They can go to Instagram, Threads, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Twitter, and TikTok too. It's supposed to be a teaser for them to grab nuggets and go to other places to really get those visuals and get inspired. It's just another way to connect and get your personality out there because people don't always see that through a website. Like I was just saying, our website was just a basic website. I mean, not basic as in it was basic. It was beautifully done. I paid a lot of money for it. The visuals on it were great. The wording on it didn't really convey what people were actually getting in their journey. Our clients weren't getting it. And it took a step back like, oh my gosh, I have to pay another $1 million to get the website. It's so important now to create that emotional connection to get aligned with the right clients. So I feel like that's just what all this is doing, which is now leading me into I'm like, okay, now how can I tie in our design services with the podcast? Because I'm a big DIYer as far as not like, painting my own stuff and like tearing down walls. I'm a DIYer and I make my own laundry soap, dishwasher tabs, candles and linen sprays. And I'm like, why can't I be making those things for people who feel the same, but maybe don't want to spend the time doing it themselves? What can I tie in for that? So I'm starting a new line called Soulful Spaces by Jodi P. And it's going to be my candles that I make and my linen sprays and different things like that that are all good quality things here with crystals and all the fun things in it and blessings and good energy vibes and all that stuff.
Yes. So you mentioned that you interviewed someone who does your murals. When you're
Yes.
doing those interviews, what's kind of like your in thinking about the listener and what they would gain from this conversation, how do you kind of flow while still staying in flow with the conversation, right? Certain conversations can just go like, I think we need to go in this direction. Okay, let's go. How do you kind of like prep for those and then have them?
Yeah, feel like the most authentic podcasts and the best ones to listen to just happen free form like this, like just having a conversation. I choose my guests very carefully. I know that if our conversation flows, the podcast is going to flow beautifully as well. To prepare for the podcast, I put information about the person and then I put what I want to talk about into Chat GPT and it kind of spits out like a little a little example title and a good overview, and then I tweak it. It probably takes me about an hour and a half at least to plan out each podcast. So I'm like, no, I don't like this aspect. No, I don't like that. I don't want to talk about that up this. And it's really helpful to listeners. And then I just get like key questions. Like I break the episode into 4 or 5 segments. And then I'm like, okay, in this segment, obviously it's going to be the intro. And let's just talk about how you got into it. I'll know something about them that I think the listeners will like. I want them to know and understand the guest speaker. Sometimes it gets way off track, which is totally cool. I'll let it flow, but then I'll always get back on track and maybe bring us back to a different question. I'll tell a list of questions that I think will ask. And 9 times out of 10, how it's flowing with the questions or I can get it back there. Sometimes it just goes way off track and it is what it is. I just end it and say, if you made it through to the end, I'll get you a Starbucks coffee or something. No, just kidding. It usually flows really well, but a lot of planning. I do have dyslexia, and a lot of times where I find it a challenge is my thought process. I'll be like, I feel like I have spaghetti in my head and I don't know how to organize it so it flows easily. That's why I love AI for that. I pour in all of my ideas of what I want to talk about and it puts it in a program that could actually flow. Whether we get to all the questions or not, that's a whole nother ball game. But at least it keeps me like going through where I want to go through where the listener can be engaged.
Yeah, I'm finding that with another podcast that I have. This one's very free form, kind of just go with the flow. I have an idea of where I want to go and some key points, but I really just
Mhm.
like to kind of flow with it. Whereas my other podcasts, we read smut, where I interview authors and bookish content creators, and we talk about how incredible romance is in a lot of ways. But in that one, I was like, I'm going to do a lot more upfront research. If I'm interviewing an author, I want to have read their book and enjoyed their book. So I'm picking
Yes.
from people that I've read. And then, of course, having to be like, okay, don't fangirl. Just like, what are some things like, what do you want to talk about in this conversation? Okay, AI, here's the direction I want to go in,
Yes.
keeping in mind the overview of the podcast, the audience of the podcast, right? I have to
Mhm.
sometimes keep reminding it, hey, the audience isn't authors, it is readers. And so, like, reminding it when
Exactly.
I have to,
That
and
AI
then
is not
having it skim
perfect,
it.
but it does help.
I like to think of it as your unpaid intern, right? Like, it can
Yes.
help bounce ideas off of, but you're not going to use it as perfect copy and paste. Yeah.
That's so funny. So when I was little, back to your muddy book comment, I was in kindergarten and we had to do writing project about where we got our name. So I interviewed my mom and I remember asking her, where did my name come from? It's Jodi. Is it grandma's name? Is it great grandma's name? It's got to be like a family name or something cool. Or maybe we were inspired by this person named this or something. She's like, "No, I read it on a Danielle Steele trashy romance novel." So, like, I'm like, "So I'm named after a romance novel? How am I gonna write a story in kindergarten about that?"
Oh my
I'm like,
That
"Mom,
is
couldn't you have made something up? Why would you tell your child that?" I just don't get it.
I love that though. That's awesome. But, like, that gives personality, right? So anyone who's
Yeah.
listening, they just got to know you on a deeper level because you shared that. A lot of people, when they're podcasting, like you said in the beginning about those initial episodes, tend to be more reserved. They maybe don't share other aspects of themselves. And
Mhm.
we're not saying you have to trauma dump on your listeners. That is not ever okay. That's not what we're
No.
saying. We're saying share bits that are going to help elevate the conversation, that are going to allow your listeners to say, "Yep, me too." And that is what's going to connect you. That's going to have them sliding in your DMs and wanting to talk to you. So, using your podcast as a way to funnel people either into education or maybe potential
Mhm.
clients, how has that worked for you at this point?
I'm not sure when this aired, but I just started my podcast in November, and I told you the first few months are not so special. We are getting a lot of people who want me to be a guest on podcasts. I'm hoping where the podcasting leads to, other than just layering another layer of branding onto it, I'm hoping to do a book and speaking engagements. I have the gift of gab, and if I can get it out of my dyslexic brain and organize it, which I'm hoping a book will help me organize my whole, like, what is I'm gonna write everything down and then, like, let's narrow it down to the interesting bits and create a book. There are some stories that could curl toenails, like things I've seen, done, heard, and been through, especially for people in business. If there's ever a time to be authentic, it's now. I feel like I can just let my little crazy flag fly, but yeah, it hasn't really brought us new clients, but I've had clients listening. I think that it just solidifies that brand awareness and it solidifies that personality. And it also is getting us on a lot of other podcasts to get our reach out there a little bit more because we are a nationwide design firm. So I've talked to people in Virginia and like they're just everybody's all over. So that's nice to be able to do that.
What I love about what you said is that you're having clients listen, right? And so what that does is great for referrals because it keeps you top of mind as soon as they hear a friend saying, "Oh man, I have to redesign my kitchen." I know exactly who you need to talk to, right? Even though you did some services for them and you might be top of mind when they think design or they think, "Oh, I need house stuff done." Just having listened to your show and ingesting that conversation is going to keep you even further top of mind. So maybe they're even going to refer you to the coworkers or whatever. So that I think really helps with referrals. We've seen clients do it where we have one client, she's at 250 episodes with about half of those
Wow.
being solo episodes. And so now she's looking at, okay, how do I bring all those solo episodes together to create a book, right? So
Yeah.
she doesn't have to
That's
start from scratch at all.
Well, you need to hook me up with her because that's what I'm doing. I do 1 podcast a week, and 2 of them are usually solo or at least maybe with one other design team. I'm getting comfortable talking to myself about myself because I'm just
Yes.
staring at myself. Although this is the first time I've ever done one in my Mercedes Sprinter van, I'll have to say. So, apologize to the listeners, but hey, you gotta do it where you're at, right? You just gotta make it work.
Yes, and bucket list, right? Like bingo card. I did a
Yeah.
podcast interview in the Sprinter van.
I feel like that would make a really good thread comment. Like, "Hey, have any of you done a podcast in your Sprinter van before?" Like, it's magical.
Yes. And you can have great conversations that are going to give listeners values, that are going to be able to educate them and inform them and also get your business out there. Jodi, this has been so fun getting to know you and sharing your podcasting experience, right? There's no one right way to podcast. You get to decide what that looks like for you. And it sounds like you are well on your way in the right direction. Where can people find you, get to know you, and listen to your show?
Sure. So we are on everywhere podcasts like Apple and Spotify and all the things, and on my website. The podcast is there too. It's Designing in 5D, which is amazing. Love to get some listeners, shares, likes, and comments. You can also find us on the website, which is Elizabeth Erin, spelled ERIN, designs with an S.com. And on the website, it's getting redone, but hopefully by the time this airs, we'll be all good to go. You can find inspiration, information about our 5D process, images and everything else. We're on Instagram, Facebook, podcasts, threads, TikTok, and all of the things. Like, if we're not somewhere, I'd love to know about it because we'll probably be on.
Love
I
it.
think we're on everything.
And we'll make sure that we have that linked in the show notes, all of those links for anyone who is driving or doing other things.
Hanging out in their Sprinter van, listening to a podcast. I love it.
Exactly. And that way you can grab those links. Jodi, thank you so much. This has been a blast.
I do have to say one quick thing though.
Yeah.
The most important thing about having a podcast is to have fun because if it's not fun, it's not gonna stick with it. And you just need to roll with the mistakes and just be authentic as possible. If you're doing podcasts, that's podcast advice from me. Being in business 22 years and just starting a podcast myself.